Welcome to my jungle. Thank you for tuning in to my first episode of the Unpolished Plant Parent Program. How good is alliteration? So I'm just wanting to put out little, shorter, quick, to the point, hopefully to the point, videos of specific plants, their care tips, at least in my care. At the end of the day, I'm basically just hoping to give you a bit more information than that absolutely useless tag that came home on the plant with you. Now, of course, my tips and tricks are going to be relevant to my living conditions. So you may need to keep that in mind. You may need to slightly adjust your lighting or the medium the plant is growing in, the density of the soil, those sorts of things. So the specific things about my environment that I think is relevant to keep in mind is number one, that I live in Australia, which obviously means I live in the southern hemisphere, which affects a couple of things. I'm obviously going to be experiencing a different season than anyone in the northern hemisphere, as well as the fact that the direction of my windows are back to front are all different. It's backwards to if you're living in the northern hemisphere. Please keep that in mind. Now, although I live in Australia, I do not even close live in a desert. I do not even live somewhere very warm. So, as I've mentioned before, it's pretty cold most of the year where I live, so I have lower humidity levels. I always have heaters going in my house, and I do not have a big blaring desert sun coming and glaring down on those plants. My windows that are north-ish facing are covered. I have a little bit of a veranda with a little bit of a roof. I also have trees out that way. So although it's somewhat northern exposure, in some places along those windows it's pretty dappled by the time it gets to it. My southern windows, on the other hand, are not covered, and they do actually get direct light, but only for a short period of the day. So essentially during my Unpolished Plant Parent Program videos, I will be showing you one of my plants and giving you a little bit of info about the plant itself, and then I will run through lighting, watering, humidity, propagation methods, and then I think that should do ya. So let's get into the first plant, shall we? So this little cutie here is what I tend to call a PILEA moonvalley. Now, I did some research on what this plant is called, and you know, things weren't very clear. I have to admit that. This plant goes by a bunch of names. So it belongs to the Urticaceae family, which is the nettle family. And the genus is a Pilea, just like your Pilea pepeomoides. Now the species, I've seen referred to as an involucrata, that word, as well as a Pilea mollis. The common names though are PILEA moonvalley, or a friendship plant, which I know a lot of Pileas identifiers go by, are their nicknames. Anyway, it does have a really cute reason for that. So the PILEA moonvalley is non-toxic if you have very curious pets or children around your house. So don't have to stress about this girl. And she is native to Central and Northern America, which can help us to guess and understand a lot of her care tips. So lighting. I've had this plant for I think about 2 years, and she's been tested out in many different lighting situations, which has been super interesting because I've seen pretty dramatic responses from this plant depending on how much light she's getting. When I had this PILEA moonvalley sitting on my dining room table directly in my southern window, despite the fact that it's a southern window, the sunlight's not terribly harsh or strong at all, there did end up being too much light for this plant. She lost a lot of the brown on her leaves. Things were looking a little droopy. She's actually looking a little bit droopy right now, but that's more related to watering. She got a little bit droopy, she wasn't flowering, she wasn't growing, and overall very pale and sort of bland, dull looking. When I put her in a much lower light setting, the green becomes more vibrant. The brown also becomes far more vibrant and saturated, and you'll see that she has these terribly cute little blooms. Soft pink, little fluffy blooms. So personally, I would recommend a lower light situation for your PILEA moonvalley. I'm hoping that it goes without saying that low light does not mean no light at all. Plant needs light. End of story, don't need to explain that anymore. Okay, watering. Pileas in general I think are a little bit susceptible to root rot. They have finer, sort of hairy roots rather than big, thick, chunky ones, which generally means that is a little bit more susceptible to root rot. I keep mine in this clay pot, which helps wick away the moisture. I also have her in my own very well draining soil. So she dries out really fast, which I like because I know that there's not just water sitting around those tiny little delicate roots for a long time. As I mentioned earlier, she's looking a little bit droopy at the moment. Not all of her leaves, but most of her leaves are starting to, might be a bit easier to see from the back. Yeah, they're starting to all sort of slant downwards a little bit and just look a little bit droopy, a little bit tired looking, which is great. It means that she's telling me that she's probably ready for another drink now. And I love a vocal plant. So helpful. I love that. I think that's all I have to say for watering. Oh, in terms of water. So this is not a plant that I would consider too sensitive or too delicate for tap water. Yeah, no, I definitely don't go out of my way to give my Moonvalley filtered or rainwater or anything like that, and she's never responded badly to that. I don't give any of my plants freezing cold tap water straight out of the tap. I will put a little bit of warm in there, make it a bit more lukewarm. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I feel like I should mention it. Okay, now humidity. I need like a little somewhere to put this. I'm not just awkwardly tossing it back from hand to hand. Okay, humidity. This is a plant that I keep just out in the open air in my house. I don't keep it in a cabinet or a cloche or anything like that. It's also, I think, lived in every room of my house at one point or another now. So it's experienced varying amounts of humidity. While this plant is going to love higher humidity if you can give that to it, she's not in a dire situation without the extra humidity. I'll show you what happens. So the worst that's going to happen, see on this leaf here on the edges, I have some browning. That there and here, it's just from having a little bit lower humidity. Can't say that I feel like that affects the overall look of this plant. So I'm definitely not too worried about it. Propagation. So, like most plants, you can propagate via division. So I have one stalk coming out of this pot. If it were to start sprouting out more stalks from the pot, definitely just take that out of its pot and divide that in half and instantly have two plants. But the far more fun method is stem cutting. The reason why so many pileas go by the name of the friendship plant is because of how easy they are to propagate, and once their roots get really tight in a pot and they are a little bit pot bound, they will start popping out pups or babies in the pot as well that can just sort of be snipped off and propagated either however you like to propagate things. I like to propagate these in water because I like to watch the roots. So I have taken, I don't even know how many propagations of this plant over time, probably why it has a little bit of a bare stem. So how I would propagate, if we have another look at the back of the plant here, it's very easy to see. We have the main stem going on here, and then this whole stem here is actually popped out in the last maybe 4 months, 4 or 5 months. So I would probably either chop this one here off. I do have another little stem coming off here. You could also cut this one back closer to the main stem and propagate that as well. One thing I love about pileas, which is quite similar to peperomias, is that you don't need to have a node to try and propagate from. So if I cut that stem off, it will just grow roots at the bottom of that stem. So that's as easy as that. You would just snip the stem off, pop that little baby plant in some water and let roots grow out the bottom of the stem, pot it up in some soil, and you'll have 2 PILEA moonvalleys. It's such a quirky, interesting little plant. I just think it's such a beautiful addition to a collection to add in different textures and colors and just something a little bit different. So there you have it, PILEA Moonvalley. If that video was helpful at all, if you were slightly entertained, if you just feel like being a very supportive person today, I would super duper appreciate it if you could please like this video, or what are the other things that you can do? Oh, subscribe. You could also subscribe to my channel, watch another video, comment comment, say hi, I don't know, anything. That would be very, very appreciated. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.